1986. We made it.
What should we do now?
86 would feature some of the most iconic 80s moments, from some of the most tragic to some of the most goofy.
That's weird. What the hell is goofy?
1986 would prove to be nothing short of history's Triple Lindy.
Is that hard?
That's impossible.
Today, we're going to talk about the news, culture, sports, and entertainment, and all that was weird in the 80s. This is Timeline. Today, we're about to get our fix on 1986. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel and let us know what 1986 moment you would like to see a full video on. Okay, we hope you look your best.
We got a little tiny zit here on the nose. I was just trying to lance it with this needle.
This is 1986.
This is Jennifer.
1986 started out bad for PC users. On the first, 19-year-old programmer Basit Farooq Alvi and his brother Amjad Farooq Alvi unleashed Brain, the first computer virus to attack MS-DOS. When the brothers created the virus, they were running a computer store out of Pakistan and noticed that their customers were circulating illegal copies of their software. The brothers posted their names, phone numbers, and the shop's address in the virus code, so when someone used the duplicated software, the bootlegger's computer would freeze. The virus spread so fast, the UK and America reported infected computers within days. While we're on the subject of computers, January 16th in San Diego, we would see the Internet Engineering Task Force form, who would develop and coordinate the operation, management, and evolution of the Internet. Their mission was to make the Internet work better by producing high-quality, relevant technical documents that influence the way people design, use, and manage the Internet. And yes, there was an Internet in 1986. The following day, on the 17th, President Reagan signed a secret order authorizing direct U.S. arms shipments to Iran through the CIA and other government connections. The order instructed the CIA not to tell Congress about the operation. In what would soon be called the Iran-Contra affair, this secret U.S. arms deal traded missiles and other weapons in order to free Americans held hostage in Lebanon. But it also used funds from the arms deal to support armed conflict in Nicaragua. We'll be hearing more about that later this year. Switching to space news, this will get some comment.
Voyager 2 passed through its closest approach to Uranus.
The Voyager 2 space probe swept past Uranus on January 24th, coming within 50,679 miles of the seventh planet of the solar system. During its exploration of the planet, the Voyager 2 discovered 10 moons, studied its cold atmosphere, and examined its ring system, discovering 2 new rings. Speaking of science, on the same day, L. Ron Hubbard, failed sci-fi novelist and founder of the Church of Scientology, died.
The body of L. Ron Hubbard was sound and fully capable of serving this mighty Thetan for many years.
Although there had been rumors Hubbard had been dead for years, he was really hiding out on his ranch in California to avoid subpoenas. When his death was announced, the Church of Scientology issued a statement that declared that Hubbard's body had become an impediment to his work, and that he had decided to drop his body to continue his research on another planet, having learned how to do it without a body. Cool trick. And moving on. 2 days later, on January 26th, the Chicago Bears crushed the New England Patriots to become Super Bowl champs. These were the Super Bowl Shuffle glory years.
There's no one here that does it like me. My Super Bowl Shuffle will set you free.
The sweetness of Walter Payton, the headbands of Jim McMahon, the girth of William the Refrigerator Perry, all led by Ditka. Mike Ditka, the walrus mustachioed head coach, inspired Robert Smigel, Saturday Night Live writer, to create a skit in 1991 called Bill Swirsky's Superfans.
The Bears. The Bears.
Now for some tragic news. On January 28th, anyone who is alive will remember where they were when the Space Shuttle Challenger blew up some 73 seconds into its mission.
A couple of the solid rocket boosters blew away from the side of the shuttle in an explosion.
The explosion was caused by O-ring seals which weren't designed for the unusually cold conditions during the Challenger's launch that morning. Of the 7 crew members who lost their lives, one of the most well-known was Krista McAuliffe. McAuliffe had been selected from more than 11,000 applicants to participate in NASA's new Teacher in Space program. Going into February, although they technically got started in 1979 as part of the Lucasfilm Computer Division, then known as the Graphics Group, Pixar became its own corporation, with funding from Apple co-founder Steve Jobs, who became the company's majority shareholder. Meanwhile, in the Philippines, on February 7th, President Ferdinand Marcos was caught in a sketchy voters poll scandal in that year's snap presidential election. When the votes were recounted, it showed that Corazon Aquino won with almost 70% of the votes.
You mean you haven't played it yet? We can play it on my Nintendo Entertainment System. It's The Legend of Zelda, and it's really rad. Those creatures from Ganon are pretty bad. Octoroks, Tektites, Levers too. But with your help, our hero pulls through.
Ryan White was readmitted back to school after he tested positive for AIDS after an infected blood transfusion. The day White returned, 151 of the school's 360 students stayed home. At the same time, White was working as a paperboy. Many of the people on his route canceled their subscriptions, believing at the time that AIDS could be transmitted through newsprint. In late February, John Domenyuk, born Ivan Mikolayevich Domenyuk, was found in Ohio, where he'd been living since the early 50s, and was extradited to Israel. Known as Ivan the Terrible, Domenyuk was accused of war crimes and crimes against humanity while serving as a guard at German concentration camps during World War II. Ivan the Terrible would squeak out of a death sentence in Israel, but in 2002, his American citizenship was revoked. Going into mid-March, a notable first, as the American Medical Association ruled that euthanasia is ethical on coma patients. Before this, we had the case of Barber versus Superior Court. At question were two doctors honoring a family's request to withdraw both respirator and intravenous feeding and hydration tubes from a comatose patient. The doctors were charged with murder, despite the fact that they were doing what the family wanted. In 1986, reports came in that Pakistan crossed the threshold of weapons-grade uranium production, and by March 1st, the country had produced enough fissile material for a nuclear weapon. Pakistan continued advancing its uranium enrichment program over the years, and according to Pakistani sources, the nation acquired the ability to carry out a nuclear explosion in 1987. Think about that, as Matlock does what he does best.
How long were you you-knowing in the parked car?
Well, from the bottom of the third till the end of the game.
6 innings? You're kidding.
It's Laputa, a floating island.
An island that floats in the sky?
Yep. Most people think it's just a legend, but my dad actually saw it.
On April 8, 1986, Clint Eastwood became the mayor of the small seaside city of Carmel, California. Eastwood decided to run just hours before the deadline to enter the race, after several run-ins with Carmel officials and its mayor. Dirty Harry wanted Carmel to develop business. Incumbent Charlotte Townsend and city officials wanted to keep the seaside town small.
How do you feel your campaign is going so far?
Gosh, can't you ask something original? What am I supposed to say? I think the whole thing has been given an absolutely abnormal tilt by the media presence. We strive as much as we can to live our quiet, private, normal life.
Despite his landslide victory and overall good marks, Eastwood didn't seek re-election, saying he wanted to devote more attention to his children.
I can see the t-shirt now, saying Clint for president. Now when I want to see a movie, some action hard and fast, I just go down to Carmel and watch Clint kick some.
3 days later, aboard the 60-foot sloop American Promise, Dodge Morgan became the first American to sail solo non-stop around the world, a feat in which he cut the previous record time nearly in half. Morgan slipped into the port of St. George, Bermuda, completing the 27,000-mile circumnavigation in 150 days, 1 hour, and 6 minutes. April 15th marked the day the United States began bombing Libya, a mission which was referred to as Operation El Dorado Canyon. The attack was carried out by America's Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps via airstrikes, in retaliation for the West Berlin discotheque bombing 10 days earlier. A 2001 trial in the U.S. found that the nightclub bombing had been planned by the Libyan Intelligence Service and the Libyan Embassy. More bomb-related news, this time in London, took place 2 days later on April 17th, when a bomb was discovered in a bag at Heathrow Airport. Later referred to as the Hindawi affair, security found a 3-pound brick of plastic explosives in the bag of Anne Marie Murphy, a 5-month pregnant Irish woman, who was boarding a flight to Tel Aviv with 375 other passengers. Murphy claimed to be unaware of the contents and that she had been given the bag by her fiancé, Nezar Hindawi. Hindawi, who confessed that he was working with Syrian Air Force intelligence, was later caught and sentenced to 45 years in prison. In late April, we go to Boston. It's Game 2 of the first-round series against the Celtics. Michael Jordan scored 63 points, setting a postseason scoring record. Despite Jordan's scoring barrage, the Bulls lost the game in double overtime, 135-131.
Our
Our Miller Lite Most Valuable Player of the game is Michael Jordan with an all-time record 63 points.
Boston eventually swept the three-game series and went on to win the NBA championship.
But it was an incredible, incredible playoff performance. That wasn't Michael Jordan out there. It was God disguised as Michael Jordan.
The following day, on April 21st, Geraldo Rivera hosted The Mystery of Al Capone's Vaults, a live 2-hour syndicated special.
But over here is the main event. This is what you've come to see, and this is why we're here. This massive concrete chamber, which some believe was built for Al Capone.
For weeks, commercials hyped that Rivera would reveal either Al Capone's great riches, dead bodies, or both on live television. Instead, when the vault was finally opened, the only thing found inside were a few empty moonshine bottles.
And I promised all the critics that if we didn't find anything, I'd sing a song. So, Chicago, Chicago, that toddling town. All right, I'm going.
It was embarrassing for Geraldo, but not as bad as 2 years later. On November 3rd, 1988, when on Geraldo's talk show, a white supremacist broke Geraldo's nose with a chair, marking a point when Geraldo Rivera became synonymous with trash journalism. Saturday, April 26th, at the number 4 reactor at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in northern Ukraine, the core overheated during a safety test, resulting in one of the worst nuclear disasters in history. 2 Chernobyl plant workers died due to the explosion on the night of the accident, and 28 more people died within a few weeks as a result of acute radiation syndrome. The city of Pripyat, the home of Chernobyl, is still uninhabitable and will be for another 20,000 years. The following afternoon, on April 27th, Captain Midnight commandeered HBO's airwaves during the broadcast of The Falcon and the Snowman, in protest of the network's increasingly high $12.95 monthly fee. The protest came in the form of a message on a color bar screen, which stayed on air for 4.5 minutes. The FCC and the FBI quickly caught up with Captain Midnight, a.k.a. John R. McDougal. McDougal was hit with a $5,000 fine, 1 year unsupervised probation, and a 1-year suspension of his amateur radio license, and the respect of a nation.
I feel the need for speed.
Staffers and executive producers at Late Night with David Letterman finally booked Cher on May 22nd. Cher had an outstanding $28,000 Manhattan hotel bill she needed to pay.
Now, do you live in New York now? You live in California?
I've been in a hotel for actually the last couple of months.
By sheer coincidence, a Late Night executive sent another invitation to Cher while she was in New York, and she responded by saying she'd appear on Dave's show for $28,000.
And you want us to cover this? Did we agree to pay for part of it?
Yes.
Cher seemed grateful for the opportunity.
I thought that I would never want to do this show with you.
Now, why? Because you thought I was
an ass.
Hands Across America took place on Sunday, May 25th. In an attempt to link approximately 5 to 6.5 million people hand in hand, literally across America for 15 minutes, forming a continuous human chain across the country. Regardless of the gaps in the chain and execution, Hands was declared a success by everyone involved and raised about $15 million for charities.
Isms, in my opinion, are not good. A person should not believe in an ism. He should believe in himself. I quote John Lennon, "I don't believe in Beatles, I just believe in me."
On June 8th, Austria chose Kurt Waldheim as their president. Congratulations, Austria. During his campaign, however, Waldheim failed to mention his past as an intelligence officer in Nazi Germany's Wehrmacht during World War II. Oops, sorry. Ultimately, Waldheim's past was outed by witnesses, photographs, medals, and commendations given to him, and by his own signature on documents linked to massacres and deportations. After his term ended in 1992, Waldheim did not seek re-election. But in 1994, Pope John Paul II awarded Waldheim a knighthood in the Order of Pius IX, and his wife a papal honor. What's up with that, JP2? Back to '86 and some tragic sports news. It started when Len Bias was selected as the second overall pick in the 1986 NBA draft by the Boston Celtics.
He had a great career at Maryland. Many people think he may be the best athlete in the draft.
Bias was already anointed to be the next great Celtic. Expectations were set so high, Red Auerbach even said he knew he was going to draft Bias when he saw him play 3 years earlier as a sophomore at Maryland. On June 19th at 8:55 a.m., Bias would be pronounced dead at Leland Memorial Hospital in Riverdale, Maryland, of cardiac arrhythmia related to cocaine use. Staying with sports, let's move to soccer, when on June 22nd, the world witnessed a miracle when Argentine footballer Diego Maradona scored a goal in a quarterfinal match between Argentina and England during the 1986 FIFA World Cup. After the match, Maradona stated that the goal was scored with the help from the hand of God, or the hand of Maradona if you look closely. In 2005, 19 years after scoring the controversial goal, Maradona confessed on a televised program. If I could apologize, go back and change history, I would. But the goal is still a goal. Argentina were proclaimed World Cup champions, and I was the best player in the world. I cannot change the story. 4 days later, in a landmark U.S. Supreme Court decision on June 26th, it was ruled that the insane cannot be executed for their crimes. In government news, the Meese report was released on July 9th.
It is a pleasure today for me to present to Attorney General Meese the following report of the Commission on Pornography.
The report was the result of an investigation into pornography ordered by President Reagan. While the main takeaway from the report was that porn led to sex crimes, most people were just shocked by how explicit some of the descriptions were. Rutledge Hill Press of Nashville sold a book version of the Meese report called Final Report of the Attorney General's Commission on Pornography. The book was deemed so filthy, most bookstores refused to carry it. Moving on to music, July 14th, Motley Crue's Vince Neil began a 30-day jail sentence for vehicular homicide. In December of '84, Hanoi Rocks drummer Nicholas Razzle Dingley jumped into Neil's De Tomaso Pantera, and the two sped off to a local Redondo Beach liquor store. Neil lost control of the car and hit an oncoming vehicle. The two occupants of the other car were injured and suffered brain damage. Dingley was killed. Neil was charged with vehicular manslaughter and driving under the influence of alcohol. His blood alcohol content was 0.17. California's legal limit at the time was 0.10. Beside the 30 days, Neil was forced to pay $2.6 million in restitution and serve 200 hours of community service. Motley Crue dedicated its next album, Theater of Pain, to Dingley. I guess they didn't care about those brain damaged people.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Thanks to an unhealthy weight, dehydration, bad eating habits, and a drug relapse on the Grateful Dead's recent stadium tour, Jerry Garcia collapsed into a diabetic coma, waking up 5 days later on July 15th. Garcia had to learn how to walk and play the guitar again. But by December 15th, the Dead returned to the Oakland Coliseum Arena, where they headlined a series of 3 gigs. Garcia would hang on until August 9th, 1995, when he died 8 days after his 53rd birthday of a heart attack in his room at a rehabilitation clinic near San Francisco.
His life was far more a blessing for all of us, and I think we should, perhaps if we're going to dwell on anything, dwell on that. Thank you.
On August 18th, a 34-year-old John Tesh made his debut appearance on Entertainment Tonight after spending years as a local news anchor and reporter in Nashville and Orlando.
John Tesh will be sitting in this seat from now on, and it sure is fun to be working with you now.
Tesh co-hosted ET for 10 years with Mary Hart, leaving to focus on a career in music where he's released over 60 albums, even doing the theme song for the NBA on NBC.
The success of Star Trek, both motion picture and television show, has blazed the trail for this fall's new Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Let's flash forward to April 24th, when Tesh played a holographic Klingon in an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
The true test of Klingon strength.
He received no on-screen credit for his cameo appearance, but who couldn't recognize that sexy, sexy forehead? September marked the debut of McDonald's pitchman, Mac Tonight.
When the clock strikes 6:30, babe, time to head for Golden Light.
Originally intended only to air in California for a few months, the popularity of the creepy moon-headed Mac surpassed everyone's expectations. Not only did Mac's campaign go national, it was extended for 4 years until Bobby Darin's son, Dodd Mitchell Darin, sued, claiming McDonald's use of Mac the knife infringed upon his father's trademark without prior permission. Most interesting, Mac was played by character actor Doug Jones and was his 4th acting gig. Jones would go on to play both Fauno and Pale Man in Pan's Labyrinth, which was released on June 19, 2007. A significant first. In his first major league at-bat, Bo Jackson recorded an infield single for the Kansas City Royals on September 3rd. The two-sport Jackson would eventually make his NFL debut with the Los Angeles Raiders on November 1st, 1987, against the New England Patriots, where he rushed for a total of 37 yards on 8 carries. We'll see how much Bo knows in the coming years. Another first. On September 8th, The Oprah Winfrey Show was broadcast nationally for the first time ever.
I'm Oprah Winfrey, and welcome to the very first National Oprah Winfrey Show!
The Oprah Winfrey Show would air nationally for 25 seasons, giving us some pretty memorable moments such as Skinny Oprah's Little Red Wagon of Fat, The Oprah Book Club, Oprah's Favorite Things episodes where she'd give her studio audiences cars and houses, and this.
We've never seen you behave this way before.
I know.
Have you ever felt this way before?
Some other notable NBC hits debuted in September.
Good to Lord, the gas is on. I forgot to light the oven. Well, I guess we'll have to order in.
We go to Ohio, where in late September, close to 1.5 million balloons were launched from Cleveland's public square. Off they went.
It's completely covering the terminal tower. Look at that!
But a storm turned a balloon fest into a balloon nightmare. Beyond the mess, the balloons caused a local airport's runway to shut down and caused permanent damage to one woman's prized Arabian horses. So many balloons covered Lake Erie that the Coast Guard had to call off a search and rescue mission for 2 fishermen who had been reported missing earlier that day. Into October, and on the 6th, a Soviet submarine called the K-219 was involved in what has become one of the most infamous submarine incidents during the Cold War. Armed with 16 ballistic missiles, each carrying 2 warheads, the K-219 sank about 600 miles east of Bermuda. One of its nuclear reactors had overheated, and Soviet seaman Sergei Preminin manually shut it down, but sealed his death in the process. It was later revealed that highly radioactive plutonium-239 was released in the mishap. After being criticized by the media for inciting violence at their concerts, most recently at a gig at the Long Beach Sports Arena where 40 people were injured during a pre-show gang fight, Run DMC finally called for a day of peace among Los Angeles street gangs on October 8th. The next day, The Phantom of the Opera opened at Her Majesty's Theatre in London on October 9th, starring Michael Crawford in the title role with Sarah Brightman as Christine. Fun Phantom fact, Crawford's mask originally covered his entire face and remained in place throughout his performance, obscuring the actor's vision and muffling his voice. Soon afterwards, Phantom's half mask was designed to replace it, and the musical's unmasking scene was added. On October 9th, The Late Show with Joan Rivers premiered on the new Fox network. It would mark the first time a woman got to host a late-night TV talk show in the U.S. Rivers took the gig because she thought NBC would never give her The Tonight Show, where Rivers would guest host when Johnny Carson took the night off. When Carson found out Rivers jumped ship to Fox, he blacklisted her, and the two friends never spoke again. It was a little after 10 a.m. on October 23rd when Keith Haring began painting a 100-yard-long mural along a portion of the Berlin Wall.
This is probably the most famous and most significant wall because it is a wall that separates and is protected by death or the threat of death to cross it.
The commissioned project was highly publicized and equally risky for Haring. West Berlin policemen shouted at him through bullhorns, taunting that he was in their country without a visa. Haring finished the mural the same day, but the piece didn't last for very long. The mural was soon vandalized and painted over by other artists. It was destroyed by the time the Berlin Wall came down on November 9th, 1991. We go now to the 10th inning of the 6th game of the World Series between the New York Mets and the Boston Red Sox, where on October 25th, Bill Buckner allowed a Mookie Wilson ground ball to pass through his legs.
Little roller up along first, behind the bag!
Buckner's error allowed the Mets to score and win the game. The Mets went on to win the series. Buckner was blamed for the series loss. That and the curse of the Bambino, of course. Moving into November, 3 long years after their first single, Kooky Puss, was independently released, the Beastie Boys dropped License to Ill on November 15th, and the suburbs were never the same again.
License to Kill, right?
That's ill, Joan.
Okay, sorry about this. Their album is called License to Ill. That's a stupid name for an album.
The Beasties' debut LP produced 7 singles, helping it go platinum on February 2, 1987, and eventually certified diamond on March 4, 2015. That's 10 million albums sold. We go to the ring, and with a second-round TKO of Trevor Berbick, Mike Tyson became the youngest heavyweight champion ever, winning the WBC belt on November 22nd. Tyson would go on to unify the heavyweight championship belts, winning the WBA belt with a decision over James Bone Crusher Smith, and the IBF belt with a decision win over Tony Tucker. Being such an iconic 80s figure, you get endorsements. On September 18, 1987, Nintendo's Mike Tyson's Punch-Out debuted, where you could fight such classic opponents as King Hippo, Mr. Sandman, and Soda Popinski. Back to 86, the Iran-Contra affair erupted on November 25th as President Ronald Reagan and Attorney General Edwin Meese revealed that profits from secret arms sales to Iran had been diverted to Nicaraguan rebels. And finally, on December 17th, American hitman Richard Kuklinski was brought down in a sting set up by the New Jersey Attorney General's office and the ATF.
Unnecessary. These guys watch too many movies.
Kuklinski was given the name the Iceman by authorities after they discovered that he had frozen the body of one of his victims in an attempt to disguise the time of death. In 2003, HBO would pair Kuklinski with forensic psychiatrist Dr. Park Dietz, who analyzed some of Kuklinski's 150 to 200 committed murders. 1986 was now over. 87 was just around the corner, where we would see the fall of famous religious figures, the crude early days of an animated classic, and the greatest crime fighter Detroit ever produced. But that is for next year. Coming soon, 1987. So what do you think? What was your fondest memory of 1986? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these only about the 1980s videos from our weird history.